and coffee. As you just noticed, we are going to shake things up a little bit for Thoughts and Coffee. Moving forward, we're testing out some new ideas, so we would love to hear from all of you. Anyways, my name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I am the founder and host and CEO of Let's Talk Supply Chain, as well as the founder and host of the Blended Podcast and the Blended Pledge. And I'm super excited to be here with you today. I'm back in my home studio. I've got my trade bestie by my side for the show today as we roll out and release some new features on this show. If you are tuning in and you are watching, let me know where you're tuning in from. I would love to give you a shout out. And of course, if you love what we're talking about today, make sure you put a fire emoji into the comments as well. All right. Now we have to say a big shout out to our show sponsor, Secret Society of Supply Chain. If you have not joined our free membership group, head over to secretsocietyofsupplychain.com and grab your seat today. Now, I want to give a shout out to all of our newest members, and we've got a lot of them. So hold on to your seats, people. Lance D. Roberts, Jade Nelson, Mark, Wilma, Ronell. We've got Steve T. Hopper, Jonathan, Marco, Giovanni, Greg, Josh, Chris Barnes, Ken Jameson, Michael, Felix, Susan Harrison, Nicholas, Maggie, Pedro, Stephanie Phillips, Audrey joined us, Larry joined us, Heather, Ahmed, Zuhair, Dale, Jay, Josh, Jessica, Monica, Jeffrey, Jamie, and Akshay. We are so excited to see you in the Secret Society of Supply Chain and can't wait for all of the great conversations that are going to be happening. All right, well, what's new at Let's Talk Supply Chain? Let's dive in. So we've got a couple of brand new episodes for you. Now, if you have not headed over to letstalksupplychain.com and tried out our new AI interactive podcast experience, highly recommend you go and check that out. This is our newest episode with Aviro 360, and we're talking about yard blindness. Now, we recorded this one on site, and as you can see there with the buttons below, you can get an executive summary, key points with timestamps, industry trends, related content. Plus, you can ask the episode a question. So head over there, check out our newest episodes. Now, that's just one. We've got a couple more to share with you. We've got episode 541. Now, this is with Megan from TGW Logistics. She's talking about how 3PLs and consultants are reshaping warehouse automation. Definitely go and check that out. We're going to be talking a little bit about warehouse automation today, but we're going to be talking about robots. And this one is a little bit different. So go and check that out wherever you listen and tune into the show. And then we've got episode 540. This is with Bill, CEO of OneRail, and he's talking about how visibility isn't fixing the last mile. He's got some really amazing takes on last mile that you're not going to want to miss. So remember, head over to Apple, Spotify. You can also check it out over on our YouTube page. So go and check that out really fast because it's a lot of fun. All right. What else do we have? Well, where else is Let's Talk Supply Chain right now? Well, Alicia from our team is over in Orlando right now for Gartner Supply Chain Symposium. I want to say hi to everybody who's over at Gartner today. Have an amazing event. Home Delivery World is happening in Nashville, May 20th through 21st. I'm going to be running one of the keynotes on stage, and then we're going to be recording podcasts on site in our client's booth. So I can't wait to see you all there. And that's all we have for today. All right. I am now going to throw it over to Camille to introduce our guest for today.
You know the feeling. You're the one who makes the thing work, and nobody notices until something goes wrong. That kind of work is mostly invisible. The wins look like silence. The losses become everyone's problem.
Today's guest has built a 20-year career on exactly that kind of work. And she's made it look beautiful. She started in a high school theater, studying music performance and technical theater. The kid backstage, making sure the show ran. Then came the Starbucks counter. Early mornings, regulars, the rhythm of getting it right before anyone else was awake. In 2005, she walked into Orchard Custom Beauty as a traffic coordinator. She never left.
From 2014 to 2019, she put in 5 years of nights and weekends to earn her CITP and FIBP designation. Trade in 20 countries teaches you something. Customs forms are a language. Behind every shipment is a person waiting on the other end. She led OWIT Toronto as president, and she stands inside Blended Pledge. Audrey lifts other women in trade as a habit. For 10 years, she's also been a Girl Guides leader. The same instinct, scaled down to a campfire. Her philosophy is simple. Trade is 20% technology and 80% people. The forms move because the people do.
Audrey, welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. Ladies, let's get the conversation going.
Thanks, Camille, and welcome to the brand new Thoughts and Coffee. What did you think?
Wow, that's quite the introduction.
I loved it. And I love that we get a little bit more personal. We get to understand, a little bit more about your career journey, what that looks like and what you like to do. So I really liked it. All right. Wow.
Wow.
I saw you in the background of the show and I was like, oh, she is loving this. You were giggling a little bit.
I love it.
And since she mentioned Blended, I do have to say that I forgot to mention that we have a brand new Blended podcast episode. If you haven't gone to check it out, Apple, Spotify, episode 66, Intersectionality, the Next Frontier for Inclusive Workplaces. This was a fabulous discussion around intersectionality and what it actually means and how do you go through the workplace holistically. So go and check that out. Sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier. So go check that
I
out.
love Blended. That's exciting.
It's such a great episode. All right. Now it's time for us to get to our poll. I'm so discombobulated because I usually ask you to do an introduction and then I have time to go through the things, but I didn't do that. All right. So let's talk about the poll of the week. So we ask you all a question every single Wednesday morning. Now we asked you this question. We had over 100 votes on this one. If your day had a status, excuse me, what would it be? 54% of you said predicting the unpredictable, which I don't know if that's kind of surprising. 25% said just one more urgent email. 11% said running behind schedule, and 10% said something broke. ... Okay. Talk to me about this poll. What did you think?
No, I thought it was fabulous because it's so true. And it was really a toss-up for me between predicting the unpredictable, because that's a lot of the day-to-day questions I get. Well, do you think that this would be on time? And you're like, oh, do I know what's going to happen in the Pacific Ocean in the next 6 weeks? Of course, sure, I'm all over it. So, and then the other thing is I am definitely that. I can just type this one more email, just one more, and then I end up late for something. So very, very real poll this week.
Well, and also
feedback.
Just that one more urgent email sometimes leads to not getting to bed till midnight, right?
I don't know what you're talking about, Sarah.
I asked them not to put that into your introduction, but I kind of needed to mention it, not gonna lie. But predicting the unpredictable, I mean, that's kind of our mantra. It should be our tagline for supply chain.
Yeah, for supply chain. Yeah.
I've trademarked a few things. Maybe I should just trademark that one. All right. Now's the time that we usually get into our market update. So tell us what's going on. There's a lot going on. We do have a news desk that are going to give us some top news stories in supply chain for the week. But I know that you're on the ground every single day having to deal with global trade, compliance, shipping. So talk to us about what's happening in the market right now. What do people need to pay attention to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the news desk is going to be great with the headlines, but I'll give you some of what, as a shipper, as a BCO, what we're seeing. So the closure in the Strait of Hormuz isn't affecting a lot of us. If you're doing consumer goods and you're shipping to Europe, or you're shipping to within Asia, or you're shipping to North America or South America, it's not having a direct effect necessarily on blocking the vessel path, or the routing hasn't really changed, but it is having an effect if you are doing, obviously if you're in fuel and tanker products and you have customers in the Middle East. That's a big physical effect on physical blockade, and a situation to keep monitoring. We are seeing from that crisis, of course, the fuel surcharge increases, surtaxes. We've got a charge now if you're shipping into Canada on the rail. The rail lines have introduced a surtax or surcharge, which has its own little acronym. And then, of course, there's the bunker surcharge that came out, vessel, the ocean. So you've got a different acronym for the ocean one versus the rail one. You're seeing fuel surcharge. Typically, those would appear if you were doing trucking in North America. You would see a fuel surcharge. Just the rate would be maybe around 10 or 12 or 15%. And now I've heard as high as 42%. And then, of course, for air cargo, this has a huge effect on air fuel prices because air fuel is a bit of a specialized commodity as well. So it's not just the gas that you get at the pump, right? It's been formulated a bit differently for air cargo. So, of course, the air cargo rates, I've seen everything from, people are able to hold kind of an $8, $8.50 to $9.45 to we even saw $10.30 in a quote last week. So that's huge. And that's as this continues, that's only expected to go on. So that's a huge negative impact on prices, which is not what everybody wants to hear because we felt that we just got over that tariff hurdle. Of course, like now we're going to start to see refunds. People can start dropping their prices. And then, of course, boom, supply chain or global geopolitics hits you with another kind of banger. So fuel surcharges are always negative effect across the board.
Yeah. Well, and if they're going to come up with new acronyms, I'm going to have to update my supply chain dictionary. It's already 107 pages. Let's not start adding new acronyms. Okay. I just want to put it out there in the industry. We don't need any new acronyms. We have 107 pages. Yeah.
And really double check Sarah's dictionary first before you're like, you know what, I've come up with this. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't invent the wheel. Maybe the wheel is already in Sarah's dictionary. And
at 107 pages, how do we know we're not duplicating efforts? I mean, let's just reference a dictionary or go to AI and ask before we bring in any new acronyms. All right. I want to give a shout out to DC and Afifi over on my personal LinkedIn. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, and super congrats to DC too, because she had such a great event. Was it last week you were in Atlanta? So congrats to her on a super successful event. It looks like it's coming back for next year. So.
Well, you might be putting her on the spot because we are live and she may or may not, but we're going to leave that up to her.
We'll see.
But you took the words right out of my mouth. I was in Atlanta last week for National Supply Chain Day and she did an operations gala, workshop, breakfast, and it was amazing. Got to meet some really amazing folks and it was awesome. We actually have a lot of them coming up on Blended. So super excited about that. They're going to be guests on Blended. And yeah, I've been traveling for 3 weeks. Atlanta was the tail end of that trip. I started off in Atlanta. Then I went to LA for the weekend. And then I was in New Orleans for Break Bulk. And then I was in Toronto. Yeah. And I saw Audrey in real life and gave her birthday present, which I was very happy about. And then ended the trip in Atlanta. So it's been a crazy fun 3 weeks. Just going to say, we've got Larry hyping up, National Supply Chain Day
and Larry
with the gala. So thank you so much for that. And all right, let's get to our first article. Are you ready?
Sure.
This one is a little crazy.
We're talking robots.
We are talking robots. Now, robots are here, people. So it looks like this company where did it go? There it is. Okay. It looks like this company just raised another $935 million investment for humanoid robots. Now, what makes this one a little bit different, because they do talk about their competitor in this particular article, but this company, Apptronik, they have partnered with Google DeepMind. Now, I picked this one because, as you all know, we recently partnered with Google as well on the AI interactive podcast experience, making content in supply chain that much more interactive. And so this was really attractive to me because I know what it's like to partner with Google. But this particular humanoid robot is actually based on the physical action is based on environment and not instruction. So when you think about a warehouse, they're talking about unloading, they're talking about pick and pack, and they're talking about this robot doing a few other things. But instead of instructions telling it what to do, it should be picking up the actions based on the environment that it's in, which I thought was really crazy and something that we needed to know about. What did you think about this, Audrey?
I think it's really interesting because there is, again, like logistics tech, robotics tech is a very much, is it going to be a flash in the pan? Is it being overvaluated? Are people getting in? And what is the result going to be? We see news articles that kind of offer differing perspectives. I think this one is interesting because it does have a bit more longevity than people might expect. It's been sort of in its infancy since 2013. And it does have some big name connections. So if you're connected with Google, it's also connected with NASA, which I'll get to in a second. But there's actually, kind of a real product that seems to be coming out of this. And so that makes the investment and their, they talked a little bit about Series A versus Series B, which not my strong suit. But if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably more familiar with this. But the question was asked, like, why wouldn't you go with this type of series versus this type of series? But apparently it was dealing with great inbound interest. People were so interested in investing that it sort of went through that type of series, which is kind of an interesting indicator in the market. And then my favorite part of, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said it's huge, right?
Yeah.
Because they weren't seeking investment. It actually came to them and they decided to do a Series A.
Let's open this up because there's obviously people interested.
Yeah.
And my favorite part about this is that they've been partnering with, they competed in a NASA DARPA challenge and have been maintaining a partnership with the space agency. So I'm excited to see how that's going to come to be and what happens with their Apollo robot.
I love that. And I love that you love space logistics. I just want to announce here, it sounds like I'm announcing this on our show. DC has said she is definitely doing the operations and supply chain gala again next year. She's got a couple of people who've signed up to be on the planning team. So she's growing it. She's going big and we're super excited for her. All right. Well, let's send it off to the news desk. Diane, Julian, what are some of the top supply chain stories for this week?
3 stories on the desk: tariffs, the Canadian border, and 12 tons of stolen chocolate.
All 3 are moving freight, costs, and risk this week.
The administration announced 25% tariffs on EU cars and trucks, effective next week.
The bilateral deal was saving European automakers nearly $600 million a month. Suppliers will reroute production to Mexico, Korea, anywhere with capacity outside the EU.
German plants don't move. Auto carriers and port volumes take the hit.
The border systems are failing. Cargo messages that took minutes now take 8 hours.
Hitting Ontario, Quebec, and Manitoba. Drivers sit 8 hours on the U.S. side, $600 per truck per shift.
Carriers losing up to $6 million a day. CTA wants federal cabinet funding.
12 tons of KitKat stolen in transit. Truck taken Italy to Poland, still missing.
413,000 bars. Cargo theft is rising across Europe, according to TAPA.
Tariffs, the Canadian border, and 12 tons of missing chocolate. That's the desk, Sarah.
That was fun. Thanks, Diane and Julian. Lots to talk about, though, because we've got some tariffs going on, European cars. I mean, that KitKat thing, everybody's been talking about that. I don't know if you've seen it across social media, but everybody has picked up on this. 12 tons. I said that to my husband this morning, and he was like, oh, who's got a deal on KitKats?
That's definitely, I'm sure the KitKat, team is like scouring the region for some bodega or I guess store that opens up all of a sudden with discount bars.
Can you imagine? And you have to, okay, here's my supply chain brain thinking, because it's chocolate, right?
Yes.
It's not necessarily winter anymore, so you're going to need a refrigerated truck. So how do you just steal 12 tons of KitKats and it not melt? At least half of it melt. Then it's waste, and then you just got to throw it out. So what was the point? Because it's not like you're going to go and rent a reefer. Let's be real.
Yeah. There's so many questions, Sarah. This is going to end up like that maple syrup heist in Quebec. And 3 or 4 years from now, it'll be an Amazon Prime original story on, there's
going to be
drama, the thriller of the KitKat heist.
Okay, well, if anybody's going to make a movie about the KitKat heist, I want to be the voiceover, just so everybody knows. All right.
Obviously.
Let's get to our second article because I want to have time to talk a little bit about our third article as well. So this article is actually a case study that we partnered with Anaplan on, and they're talking about transforming your supply chain from a cost center to a growth driver. Highly recommend you go and click the link and download this particular report. This report is written with Del Monte. That's right, the pineapple people. The pineapple people, and Duckhorn, which are both really large CPG companies. And a lot of what they're talking about in this particular case study is collaborative planning. Oh, okay. I couldn't read my writing. I was like, what does that say? So Del Monte actually talks about how waste is such a big factor because obviously they're moving perishables, they're moving goods. And they were actually using 150 spreadsheets for scenario planning. 150 spreadsheets, people. A minor change took 6 hours. Isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
What did you think of this particular article? And then I'll make some more comments and we can go on to the next one.
I think overall that's not, I think for those of us in supply chain, 150 spreadsheets or that we're doing foundational work in spreadsheet is not uncommon. I think that's very normal for people. And I think this really dives into a good exploration of what the impact of that is in terms of decision-making, in terms of agility, in terms of speed. And then I also think there's a new focus too on, obviously supply chain coming out of, supply chain challenges tend to have costs, right? So it's seen as this cost center. And I think this is a good example of how, you can see supply chain as a cost center, and that's somewhat deemed a negative, or you can see it as a place where there's a lot of information that if you follow it, you can make strategic investment decisions, or you can, have a lot of cost avoidance because of the way you're planning and the way you're designing your supply chain. So it's a valuable case study for anybody who's in our business.
Yeah, well, and when they really took a look at the collaborative planning scenario, which in this case, they're talking about supply chain, they're talking about finance, they're bridging the gap between all of that and the data in between, right? Collaborative planning, breaking down the silos, still not sure why we're talking about silos to this day in 2026. But we are, people. We are. And they were saying that their planning went from 2 weeks to 2 days.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just one example. I went to see Aristocrat. I was in their facility back in February, and they were talking about how they had reduced, I think it was part of their manufacturing, which was like 4 hours to 90 minutes. And it was really just the fact of being able to bring in technology, but also strategic planning around what does that look like? What does it need to look like to optimize what everybody's doing? And how do we take the data that we have and how do we use it more strategically? And so these are really small tweaks, I think. This is something that you just need to go and talk to the people on the floor and better understand the people that are doing the work, really better understand what that means and how you can optimize it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So the link to the case study is in the comments. Go and check that out. Download it today. It's got some really great conversation pieces in there. And would love to hear your thoughts on that. All right, let's go. Garis, I need to put this on the screen. Garis says, are those KitKats still edible or are they already in? Like Audrey and I said that we had a lot of questions. That is of them. I want to know if any of them melted, first of all. So then they're not, you can't resell them. Yeah. And also, like, what are you going to do with them? You're going to sell KitKats on the black market for what? Like 50 cents? I don't know. Anyways, not sure what they're doing with that. Here we are. Let's talk about the last article for today. Now, I don't know if you have seen what has been happening over the last week or so on Instagram. If you're not on Instagram, I highly recommend you go over there because this whole thing started with Reese Witherspoon, I think. Reese Witherspoon went on Instagram and she was like, 40% of women are not using AI and I want to help you use AI. And why are we not using AI? And it exploded. Women are really on the fence about AI and they're on the fence about data centers. They're on the fence about the environment. They're on the fence about whether they actually want to use it, but then in workplaces, they're being forced to use it, but then most people aren't getting credit for using it. And so it's a mess. This is a messy situation. And then Mel Robbins, I think it was just yesterday, she came out and said 40% of women are not using AI. You need to start using AI today, blah, 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 blah. And it kicked up the dust all over again on Instagram about what is going on. What is your take on this? And then I'm going to go to the article and share some of the stats.
I think it's, I mean, not unexpected. It's not an unexpected conversation to be having, because there is certainly, I mean, I'm using AI. I would say maybe I'm not an early adopter, but I'm definitely digging into it. And it is a concern about the data centers and about the waste of water, right? That is legitimate. It's a legitimate concern. And then I think the other concern is, if I start using AI and I make my job faster, am I just helping a corporation to eliminate my job? I think that's a real concern for workers of any gender and any type, any level of seniority, right? That is a concern. And then also, I think there's a lack of practical use cases. I think the first kind of trend wave, obviously AI has been in the background for decades, but I think this pop-up of like, oh, I'm going to make fake images and fake art is definitely concerning to women around deep fakes, around their image and the use of their image. That's definitely a gendered or intersectional concern, and a serious one that doesn't get any reference or recognition in when we talk about legislation and things to date. But what are the practical use cases? Like, it's just like, oh, here I can do this fun picture. Okay, well, what I've done with it is to compare my freight rates between different forwarders and come up with chartings and graphs. And that saved me, like, I used to do like a 4 or 5 hour spreadsheet, and that saved me time on that. So I think hearing other people and giving actual use cases, Brian Glick's got a couple of practical use cases where you're like, oh, this actually would make this piece of the job easier. But I think it's very much been a talk of like AI, for like an overview level, AI is going to solve all your problems. Sorry, what problems specifically? And is that the trade-off worth it for, again, the risks to my image and brand or my person versus and the environmental risks that's at play. So I think those are very real, and those are conversations that are missing sometimes.
Yeah. And I think they're very valid concerns. Yeah. One of the things that we're doing in Secret Society of Supply Chain is that we're going to be running an AI in-depth course. Not really a course, but like a series of virtual events that we can really dive into it and really learn what it can do for us and how it can help us in our jobs. Because at the end of the day, they're going to be looking at their teams to find out how they're optimizing and what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and you can't be, it's tricky. It's like, you can't be a late, like there are valid concerns, but at the same time, you still have to use a tool. The reality is it is going to come in. It is going to be a skill set that you have to have. You have to be able to have a cogent conversation with your leadership about how your team is using it, what you're exploring, or is it just a training need? Like, what we'd like some more grounded training, or we'd like to make sure that the ethics are being maintained, or that we're using it in an enterprise environment, and not just randomly putting our private info on, corporate info on the internet as well. So, but it's definitely something you can't really ostrich. You can't put your head in the sand about it.
Yeah,
you've got to be participating and at the same time, just kind of maintaining those kinds of questions and concerns.
Yeah, it's so true. So I highly recommend you go and check out this article. It actually talks about the stats. Where are we today? What does that look like? What are the concerns? Because especially for supply chain leaders, understanding what is concerning to your team, I think, is really going to help move the needle and help you address some of the concerns that they might not be articulating on a daily basis to you. And these are some real things. I mean, they're getting information from social media. They're using AI. There's a lot of things happening right now, and robots are coming. I mean, look at this B-roll right here. Robots are here. They're here to, unload trucks and give you hugs. Anyways, that was a great show. We are trying some new things. So I'd love to hear from everybody. If you have any thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. Send me a DM on LinkedIn. Audrey, thanks for being my guinea pig for our first, rebranded Thoughts and Coffee.
So fun.
And to everybody out in the audience, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to see you again next week. We're going to have even more fun next week, and that's happening Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So we'll see everybody there. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, team.